Eyewitness News presents Newsmakers, winner of the Pennsylvania Association of Broadcasting Award for Excellence in Public Affairs Programming, with your hosts, Jayne and Bugda and Andy Mehalshick.
Hello and welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Andy Mehalshick.
And I'm Jayne and Bugda. Harmless teasing or something more serious, bullying. What should you do if your child is the target of a bully?
We are joined by experts to talk about the warning signs of a child being bullied and what to do if your child is the bully.
We'll introduce you to our guests, and our conversation will begin when this edition of Newsmakers returns right after this. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Jayne Ann Bugda along with Andy Mehalshick. And our topic of conversation today is what to do if your child or you are the target of a bully. We hear about it from the playground to the boardroom. And today it's the topic of our conversation, and we are joined by two experts who are going to help us understand a little bit about what to do if you are have a child who is in that situation, or if you're in that situation. We are joined by Tammi Burke, who is the manager of community services for Victims Resources, and Trudy Enslin, who is the manager of prevention education for Victims Resources right here in Wilkes-Barre. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yep.
This is an important topic because it's in the news constantly, and we hear about it in our newsroom, we read about it in the newspaper. So we hope to shed some light on people here and give a better understanding and what you can do if you do witness a bullying incident. But first, let's talk a little bit about the organization you're here representing, which is the Victims Resource Center. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, Victims Resource Center, it's a nonprofit organization that provides services to victims of crime. We cover Luzerne, Wyoming, and Carbon County. Our services are confidential and at no cost, but we work a lot with, like I said, victims of all crimes: sexual assault, robbery, burglary, stalking, harassment, homicide survivors, domestic violence. And our role there is to provide support. We have counseling. We provide accompaniment. So if a sexual assault victim went to the hospital, we would go to the hospital with them to provide support. If a victim chooses to report to the police, our philosophy is based on empowerment. We give people options, and if they want to make a report, we will go with them to the police station throughout the whole legal process, from preliminary hearings all the way to parole board hearings. We provide programs in the school, from preschool to high school, throughout college, and Trudy could probably talk a little bit more about the programs that we do. And we assist people in filing for victims' compensation. Victims' compensation is money in Pennsylvania that pays for out-of-pocket losses to victims of crime. And I think that's a real important piece because I don't think a lot of people know that. But victims' compensation will pay for medical bills, it pays for lost wages, it pays for funeral services. And if somebody's been a victim of fraud or theft or burglary and the money they get is from some sort of disability check or government check, SSI, we can help a victim file for that to get some of that money back. We also provide support services, support groups in our agency. Work a lot with adults who were sexually abused as children, and monthly we hold a homicide survivors group.
And you cover generally what areas?
Luzerne, Wyoming, and Carbon counties.
And I got to say right from the start, folks, and I've covered a lot of crime over the years, the last 40 years. There are many crimes we go to, you've talked about, from sexual abuse, domestic violence, where we're in that courtroom or in the hearing, and the only people with the victim are the counselors and the folks from Victims Resource Center. And they're just a steady hand. I'm going to give you a lot of credit because they're tough situations. We won't talk to you guys because you can't, because of privacy.
Right.
But when we're in that courtroom, and they're sitting there with those people, the victims, you can tell that they're a steady hand. So I'm going to, just right from the get-go, say it doesn't go unnoticed.
Thank you, Andy. Thanks.
Really.
Yeah, the unsung heroes, right, of helping others. Now, our topic today, of course, is bullying. So I guess, what is the definition of a bully?
So a bully is a person that uses power and control. That's their main goal, to have power and control over somebody that they view as weaker, smaller, or different. And the behavior is repeated, so it's a repeated pattern that we see happening over and over again, not just a one-time incident. So it would be occurring over and over, and it's used to hurt, humiliate, or threaten somebody.
And you present programs on this, and are we seeing an uprise in?
That's a difficult question because we're not really seeing an uprise. I think people are more aware of the situation, so the awareness has been raised. When I go out into the schools, I see bullying prevention signs all throughout the hallways, but it's still a problem that's reoccurring despite all the prevention efforts that we're putting out there.
And you're talking about, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but some people have an image of a bully, of the bully at the playground, of the guy kicking sand in the face of a little skinny guy on the beach. But there's passive aggressive bully also. I mean, the just to hint that that person is watching what I'm doing, what I'm saying, like a quiet control. How is that prevalent also?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think there's different forms of bullying, and I think that maybe that's what we're talking about. I mean, and there is that passive aggressive, that standing back, and how intimidating is that? But there's the forms that, like, real obvious stuff, like you were talking about. There's the physical bullying where somebody's getting hit or punched or pushed. There is the social bullying where they try to find a way to eliminate them from being involved with other people, and how awful it is to not be included for a child, to not be included into a group, telling other kids not to talk to that child. And then there's the cyberbullying, where that's 24/7. I mean, we say times have changed, where that when the bullying happens, it can happen 24/7. It's through any type of social media, through emails, text, and it is from spreading rumors to putting up videos. And it's widespread and it's quick, and everybody can know about it. And the other part about the cyberbullying is it's really hard to delete that information.
I know we were talking before the show about, when we were all in school, and that's not that long ago, if you did something, it was, you went home.
Right.
And then if you wanted to talk to your friend, you had to talk on the phone. We didn't have that easy access, so social media brings in a whole new realm of concern.
It does.
And it's not anymore that it's just older children with phones. They're starting very young. So is there a certain age group that you're seeing that the bullying is beginning at? For how young do you see it?
I think it's carried throughout school. I don't think there's an age where it starts and says, okay, this is the perfect age. It begins as early as preschool. It levels off in high school, but it still does occur. And I would say most of it occurs in middle school. Middle school seems to be the most prevalent.
This might be an obvious answer to this question. What role does the home environment have on bullying? Because we see problems later on in life, high school, college, out in public, but is it a learned behavior? They've got, we aren't born as bullies, I don't think. So how does that happen? How much of a factor is what that child or that person have at home that they become a bully?
Yeah. And that's a big piece. When the reasons that children bully sometimes it's simple. It's like they want to be a part of something, so they'll bully their way through that. But a lot of it starts at home. It's like because they're watching you. And sometimes the kids are actually bullied by other siblings or older students. So there is an impact. Are they witnessing yelling and screaming and the name calling? Have they learned at a really early age that if you tell me no, I'm going to show you my behavior, and it doesn't stop as a child. It'll go on if we don't find a way to correct that.
If someone's at home and they're watching and maybe their youngster doesn't want to talk to them about bullying, what should you be looking for? Are there some warning signs that you should be watching out for in your child that you say, oh, something's not right?
Definitely. Look for any unexplained injury. So if they're coming home with bruises, bumps, missing personal items, whether it's backpacks, electronics, is there damage to the items as well? Are they coming home hungry because somebody's taking their lunch at school? Do you see a change in their behavior? Did they used to be the child who loved school and now they have tummy aches and they don't want to go? Just look for those subtle signs that something is not right. Do they have behaviors that are self-destructive?
And what do you tell your child? And when I say child, it could be any young person, minor in your care. What do you tell them if you realize they're being, you suspect they're being bullied? How do you broach the subject? Because especially as a guy, I would imagine a lot of males say, I'm not telling my mom and dad because I'm supposed to be the tough guy. I'll deal with it on my own. When inside they're being torn up or emotionally they're being destroyed. How do you broach that subject?
I think that goes back to having that open communication with your child, really being upfront, letting them know what behavior is acceptable for school behavior, and if they are being bullied, to talk to them about it. If something happens, talk to an adult. The adults are there to help you. Don't encourage them to fight back. A lot of times there's a lot of time you hear, if somebody punches you, punch them back. We don't want to use violence to try to solve the issue. So really encourage talking to them. Tell them be confident and surround themselves with people who make them feel good about themselves. And talk to a friend. Sometimes we don't want to run to our parents and talk to them first. Discuss it with a friend so you don't have to deal with it on your own, because it is a serious issue that we need to address.
If you're that friend, for example, let's just take it to the next step. You're that friend and you're really concerned, and you tell your parents that Johnny's being bullied, he's afraid to tell his parents. How do you connect those dots? Is there a way to get the people who should know about the bullying knowing, but you don't want to violate the confidence of your friends coming to you because they don't want their parents to know, but you feel it's a dangerous situation, and I'm going to tell my mom and dad or an adult, how do you connect those dots? How can you resolve that somehow?
Like with the parents telling, like for the other students.
That friend, the other friend who was confided, friend A told friend B because friend A doesn't want to tell his parents, or she doesn't want to tell her parents. Now friend B says, "I'm really concerned about this. I'm going to tell my mom and dad what obligation, what can they do to get the people who should know, the mom and dad of student A, child A, about what's going on."
I think it's depending on, I mean, if it's a smaller child, I would probably contact those parents. Do you mean if they were friends that way, maybe talk to that, or maybe talk to the teacher, you know, go back to the school and say this is a concern, a guidance counselor, a nurse, one of them. And if the child's older, maybe I would actually talk to the child, have the parent, you know, that other parent saying if there's some things that, you know, your friend is concerned about. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. What role do our educators play in pointing out bullying? Is there do they intercede? Are they trained to intercede?
Well, most schools have anti-bullying policies in place, and a lot of schools do implement in-services where they discuss. Tammi actually did an in-service for a local school about bullying, and so it's, you know, it is available where you could talk to, where they have the knowledge about how to identify it and what the processes are for going through if you suspect that somebody is a victim of bullying.
And as a child gets older, I'm sure that and it's probably on all of us, but I'm sure as you get older, does the bullying get more severe? Are you seeing that?
They can if they're still trying to work out that power piece. Do you know what I mean? I mean, bullying can go all the way through adulthood. You know, they don't stop, you know, at childhood. I mean, we know that adults are bullied, but also adults can grow into bullies. Not every one of them. You know, there's a certain age kind of when it cuts off, but if they haven't learned that, you know, as an adult, it will become more severe, but less subtle. You know, they could find they're smarter at that point, or, you know, have more wisdom about how to go about bullying.
I still think it's fascinating. It seems like we've been talking about bullying and the problem for forever. At least the last 10 years for sure, with a microscope, a laser beam, and we're still talking about it, and it's still going on. And you think to yourself, hasn't this society learned not to bully, or is it just part of human nature that's what it is?
I think that it's always happened. I think that we become more aware of it. You know, and I think that the more aware of it are, the more that we talk about it, the more that we teach, the more that you do programs like this, that we can change some of it. And if we don't change or stop that behavior, at least it opens up more to the victims of the bullying, knowing that there's a place that they can call or what they can do.
Because some of these stories we hear are so tragic.
I know.
Tragic. And, you know, of course, as much as social media can be a real crazy place, it serves a good purpose in that a lot of the bullying that may not have been talked about is now out there. And kids or parents can talk about it and somebody can intervene. Otherwise, it would be maybe hidden inside that house or in that classroom or that school bus.
You know, what does bullying do to a young person? How will it affect them as they get older if it continues?
Like the short term, you know, depression, low self-esteem, isolation, not wanting to go to school or struggling with, you know, school activities. But as an adult, like, it just doesn't go away because, you know, you're grown up. You know, it still impacts us as adults. Low self-esteem, suicidal thoughts, can end up in unhealthy relationships, domestic violence relationships, poor relationships maybe with family, friends, and, you know, difficulty concentrating. Like, it just doesn't end with that, but there's like short and long term, you know, and I think recognizing that is really important.
And once someone does recognize that and they are dealing with someone that is being bullied, how do they then turn their self-esteem around to say and get that empowerment?
I think it's more support. It's by getting support of the community, maybe support of individual counseling, support of a friend. But hearing things, you remember, like, when you hear something one time, you know, when it's negative, you hear it a few times over and over again, you start to believe it. So it's erasing some of those old messages and start to believe more in yourself and teaching them how to build up that self-esteem.
And then when you're talking to you know, people about this, how important is home support for kids?
It's really important. It's really important. I'm sorry, not to minimize it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think that we minimize the bullying and stuff, like, oh, that's just normal and that's natural. But if we spend a few minutes talking to our kids, saying, "I'm really sorry somebody said that to you. That's not true." You know, that there are other people that do care about you. I think we need to teach that the kids can come and tell, and that we don't minimize those things, because no matter if you're 10 or if you're 20 or if you're 50, when somebody says something mean, it hurts. Right. You know, and we really minimize, you know, the emotional piece of it. You know, those name callings and starting to believe those things.
And I think we all experience something where someone has said something to us, and we all know how badly we feel. So you can imagine what this might do to someone who has to go face this every day, and in a classroom, they're on their way to school. And do you see bullying more, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, in girls or in boys?
See, with girls, they're more likely to use cyberbullying or emotional bullying. With boys, it's more the face-to-face physical bullying. So it's different types based on the gender.
So there's each group has their own. And do you ever find it where maybe do boys bully girls or girls bully boys?
Back and forth, both. Yes.
So that's all, it's all kind of, and it's something, I guess, that people in the classrooms, our teachers and that are on the lookout for when they're watching this. Well, we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to tell you about the program that the ladies present in school and talk a little bit more about what to do if your child is the bully. We have information on today's show on pahomepage.com. We're under the Newsmakers link, and you are watching Newsmakers. We are a proud recipient of 3 Pennsylvania Association of Broadcasting Awards for Excellence in Public Affairs Programming, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Newsmakers. Jayne and Bugda along with Andy Mehalshick, and we are joined today by Tammi Burke and Trudy Enslin, and they're with the Victims Resource Center, and we are talking about bullying in the classroom, and then a little bit bullying into adulthood. But right now, the ladies present a program in our schools, a number of programs, and it's through a series of books. So tell us a little bit about this program. They have different names: Weird, Tough.
This one is Tough.
Dare.
So that program that we're talking about right now is geared through grades 3 to 5. It uses the 3 books written by Aaron Frankel, and they're told by the perspective of 3 different people affected by bullying. The first one, the Weird book, is based on the target. So we go through following her and how she's actually bullied for being who she is. The second series is Dare, and that's told by the perspective of the bystander and how she has to be daring in order to stick up for her friends. And the final one is Tough, which is actually the bully's perspective, and you learn a little bit about why she bullies, because she thinks she needs to be tough, and then realizes that she's actually being mean. So you see changes throughout the stories. It's very interactive. The children really have a good response to it. So that's one of the many options that we offer to try to get out there and offer some bullying education in our classrooms.
And this is for ages 3 to 5?
For grades.
Grades 3 to 5.
Yeah, grades 3 to 5.
If I can read this very quickly. Listen to this, folks. For all children, young and old, who have been involved in bullying, don't lose sight of who you are. Know yourself, be yourself, and always listen to your heart.
That's that probably
That touches
touches a
you
lot
deep.
of kids. Sure.
And that's the message throughout the series. It's an excellent presentation. We really enjoy doing that program.
And then as they get older, there's different programs.
We also offer healthy relationships programs for elementary students as well, where it focuses on recognizing and accepting differences, because sometimes if you're different, kids are bullied for that. And unfortunately, a lot of people are not accepting of somebody who's a little bit different than you. It also covers qualities of a good friend, so being there to stand up for them. And it deals with being an active bystander. So that's another program we have for elementary school. For the older kids in middle school, we focus on cyberbullying. So being able to identify what a cyberbully is and how to deal with it. So stopping it, blocking the person, and then telling an adult so you don't have to face it alone. And for high school, we offer a 6-session series called Expect Respect, and that deals with topics that teenagers are faced with today. Healthy relationships, sexual violence, sexual assault, and then it also touches on bullying as well. So there's several different options for age groups out there.
And you present these to the school, so if someone's interested, they can call the number that we had up and say, come on over,
Yes,
we'd like to
definitely.
hear. And it's and also to different groups as well.
Yes,
like
community groups, organizations. We do a program for, I just did one for a mini football team that was having an issue with bullying, so I came down to present a topic on just how to, because it carries out into extracurricular activities as well. It doesn't just happen in the schools.
And I want to go back to something we had talked about earlier. What happens if your child identifies as the bully? And that's probably a hard thing to hear as a parent, but what do you do?
I think pay attention. You got to sit down and talk to them and try to figure out why they're doing that. Sometimes kids, like I said earlier, that they want to be a part of something, or maybe something's really going on with them. They're afraid, or past traumas. I witnessed stuff in the house. They've been the victim of bullying. But also talking to them a little bit about empathy when they're small. Maybe they don't really completely understand the things that they're doing and what it feels like to the other person. So sitting down and talking to them about what would that feel like if that was you? Has anybody ever done something like that to you? But the other piece is getting them some sort of support or counseling, because figuring out what to do with that in childhood is really important, so it doesn't carry over into adolescence and in adulthood.
And I'm willing to bet, and just anecdotally saying that most of us have been bullied at one time or another, or attempted bullied, or have witnessed bullied, someone being bullied, and either didn't do something because we were afraid to, or didn't really grasp what was going on, not mature enough to understand.
Right.
What about, is it like a pack mentality, especially in a school, like a pack mentality, like a feeding frenzy? Somebody, you're saying they're standing back and watching, and you're basically condoning it by not taking action. Maybe not at that moment, but telling somebody about it.
Right, and I think that it's really hard for anybody to step up, especially when it's that pack thing, when you're standing back and watching it. But teaching our kids, teaching adults that there's things that we can do to intervene. When we go back to that bystander intervention piece, there are things that we can do. It doesn't mean we have to put ourselves in harm's way, but most certainly do not join in with the bullies. And I think that that's really another thing that's important to teach your child, is because everybody else is doing it. Do not be a part of that.
And if they do step in at that moment, they would fear that pack will turn on me.
Absolutely,
Exactly.
yeah.
And they want to belong to that group to begin with, number one, but number two, that pack will turn on me.
And that's
Right.
why a lot of people don't intervene. They choose not to.
But it's important to step up and maybe tell an adult if you are in a classroom situation or any type of situation.
Because we would never want anybody to do anything that's unsafe. But sometimes just going back and checking on your friend, or if it's not your friend, going back and checking on that other schoolmate to say, I saw that happen, I'm really sorry, but.
And I do want to touch upon, it's not only children, adults can be bullied as well. And you see that as you, in your day-to-day, I'm sure.
Adults are bullied, and often, they're vulnerable people who have maybe some low self-esteem, and the bullies are there in their workplace, in their homes. That happens with, with spouses and with children. The bully resides there, in adult education settings, but also in senior citizens' homes.
Oh.
It's hard to think about that, but yeah, there's bullies too.
Interesting, yeah.
Yes, they didn't outgrow it.
And they're really a captive audience, because
Yes, they are.
if it's a permanent, like a nursing home type thing or assisted living,
right.
they're there. They can't leave.
Exactly.
And forget the social media. They're going to be knocking at your door or seeing you at breakfast or lunch or in the lobby, and
Yeah,
that's got to be a scary situation.
That is an interesting perspective. So I assume that all the things that we are learning today follows through for that. Also, if they too are, or if you're an adult, then you would go to someone as well to say that you're being bullied. Sometimes you can't get out of a bullying situation, and that's when then they can contact the Victims Resource Center as well.
What if, say, a parent or a young adult is watching this program right now, and they're afraid to tell their parents? Let's say 17, 18, maybe even 16 years old. Can they call the Victims Resource Center?
Absolutely. Yes.
Or do they don't need an adult to say, oh,
They do not
mom and
need an
dad
adult.
call? Can they call anonymously?
Yes, it's
or
open
just
24
call
hours a day. Yes, they can talk to somebody 24 hours a day anonymously, yes.
And probably just getting it off their chest and telling someone is a big relief.
And getting some options, you know, and maybe doing some safety planning with them.
Well, we have less than a minute left, and I do want to remind everyone that we have information on today's program on pahomepage.com under the Newsmakers link. And then if they want to hear about the program, we also have information there that they can contact Tammi and Trudy, and they'll be more than happy probably to present the program about bullying to a school or a group, as you said, even young groups like that, and even a nursing home, maybe. Maybe, right?
Yes.
So thank you both for what you do and for
your great work.
And for helping us today get a better understanding of bringing awareness to bullying. For Andy Mehalshick and everyone behind the scenes, I'm Jayne Bugda. We thank you so much for making Newsmakers part of your day. Check us out on pahomepage.com under the Newsmakers link, and we'll talk again next time.